All right, what's up, guys? Welcome back to this episode of the beginner course. I figured that this is a perfect place to start because a lot of people tend to come in trading and think that they're just going to be making a ton of money right off the jump. I think you can guess how that goes for 99.999% of people who have that mindset. They get absolutely rinsed and they lose everything, and then they later go on to tell everyone, friends and family, how trading is a scam and everyone selling something or talking about how they made money from it or make money from it successfully is a liar. So yeah, I figured that this is the perfect way to get started on the series. Set some realistic expectations and what you could typically, expect your trajectory to be if you actually take this seriously, and if you don't get in over your head and don't have any unrealistic expectations that most likely, as a result of social media and fake gurus or just movies, TV, whatever it is. If we're being honest though, social media I think is like the worst thing that has happened to the space in particular, or like the internet money, like making money online space, whatever you want to call it. But day trading is no exception, right? Or trading in general. So yeah, let's get right into this. So like I said, right, social media, especially for myself, and I sometimes like will think about things like if they're real or not, and I'm not gonna say I get my hopes up, but I see, especially lately, I see a lot of ads for like AI trading bots that make 5K a week on autopilot, 16, 17, 18-year-old kids that are like in high school or like just started college in like a dingy little dorm room making 20, 30, 50K a month, and like just all these like crazy things that um hopefully, okay, I assume that people aren't as dumb as I think they are, but I always get proven wrong every time I interact with, like, the more people I interact with online, the more that I realize like a lot of people believe everything that they see online, right? They see somebody post a fake P&L statement. They see someone post a rented Ferrari or rented penthouse in Miami, right? And they take it for face value. They believe that all these kids just straight out of the womb, they just had the secret sauce, and the only thing holding you back from becoming successful is buying a $3,000 or $5,000 or $10,000 course, joining their paid Discord, buying their indicator or their meet and greet, whatever it is, right? They have the sauce and you do not. So naturally, over time, especially if you just get accustomed to these things, especially if the algorithm keeps feeding you these things day in and day out, eventually your mind and your perspective of what is real, or like what is even achievable, or what is realistic, starts to get skewed, right? Especially for myself, I think it was actually a very big advantage for myself that I didn't have the money to buy courses or mentorships in the beginning when I was starting out. Because if I did, I most definitely would have gotten rinsed, like a lot of people do, unfortunately. But right, like I didn't have any money to get started, so I was forced to look for the information on my own through YouTube, and just spending thousands of hours, honestly, on the charts, just practicing on my own. I didn't have anyone that I could just pay, a few grand, and they would hold my hand and walk me through everything. Teach me that they teach me all, like, the pitfalls and the wisdom that they have gotten through experience and doing this on their own, or so they claim to have done it on their own, right? Instead of just giving like a regurgitated speech on how to be a good trader. But anyways, kind of getting off topic. So, right, point is, social media especially will skew your mind, and I don't want to mislead any of you. Like I said in the initial video, I'm gonna be as brutally honest as I possibly can, because I don't think there's enough of that, and I think way too many people come into the space and they believe everything that they see. So they're like, okay, this 16-year-old kid, 18-year-old kid, 20-year-old kid, whatever, knows something that I don't, and if they can figure it out and make 5 figures a month within 2 months, then I can do the same. So yeah, I just want you to just try to forget everything that you've seen regarding that. Basically, every single person that, if their social media is full of lifestyle content, cars, money, houses, watches, girls, clubs, travel, any of that stuff, probably they don't make majority of their income, or even a small percentage of, okay, I would bet a lot of money that these people did not get rich off of trading, right? That's like a big reason why I am like doing this as well. Like I feel like I'm just like beating a dead horse, but it's just nauseating, the amount of people who claim that they know what they're doing, and then they sell you a dream, and that's how they finance their lifestyle. And just the more people that they convince that they know what they're talking about by posting all this lifestyle content, the richer they get and the more successful they look from trading, which is not the case. So anyways, right. Sorry. So, but yeah, I'm sorry. Yeah, this topic gets me fired up. So, okay, back to the expectations and setting realistic ones. So, I can tell you right now, the people telling you that you'll start making 10K a month within 2 weeks, or whatever ad that you've seen on the internet, or whatever like mentorship video that you've seen. Okay, I will say, I'm not going to say it's impossible, but it 100% depends on you, right? How much time? Okay, that's why I don't hate the question, but I always laugh a little bit whenever people ask me, how long will it take for me to learn how to trade? How long will it take for you to teach me to the point where I'm at your level? How long will it take for me to get to, 5K a month, 10K a month, whatever, $1,000 a month, or just whatever goal that they have in mind? I always laugh a little bit because it's impossible to give a decent answer for that, in my opinion. I always equate it to someone asking me, how long would it take me to learn Spanish? Or how long would it take me to become a professional boxer? Or a whatever, like any skill, whatever that is worth learning at a high level, right? So if you didn't know already, I've been doing this for nearly 6 years now, right? Over half a decade. I don't even know how many thousands of hours I've put in at this point, but right, it's been a long time since I started. So whenever people come up to me and ask, can I quit my job within 2 months, 6 months, 12 months, whatever, they usually don't go past like 6 months, honestly. People are generally very short-sighted, which is another reason I'm making this video. But anyways, I always laugh a little bit when they ask me this, because it's like I have no context to how much time you have to dedicate to this. Like, are you working full-time right now? Are you in school full-time? Are you working and in school? Do you have kids? How much time do you have to dedicate to seriously learning and taking the time to figure out a completely new skill to you that you've never dabbled in before, right? So how much time do you have? How much urgency do you have, right? Are you just like trying to test this out as like a hobby, or like a side hustle? I really hate when people call things a side hustle. It just sounds like you're not taking it seriously, but I digress. But like, okay, right. So how much time do you have? How much urgency do you have? So like, are you like fighting for your life to get rich within X amount of time? Or are you just trying to like see, you saw some cool YouTube videos, or you saw somebody post a cool car and they say that they're a trader, so you're trying to figure this out for yourself? What type of learner are you? Are you visual? Are you hands-on? In my opinion, just the hands-on, in general, in my opinion, hands-on learning is the best. Just getting in there and actually doing things, trying things out for yourself is the best. But whatever, just and besides that, like, are you a good learner? Are you a fast learner? Or does it take you, multiple run-throughs, multiple explanations, multiple ways of explaining something to you to understand a concept fully? And all right, I'm sure there's like many other factors as well, because everyone's personalities are different. But just off the top of my head, those three things are the biggest ones. So right? Everyone is extremely different. When I was starting out, right, I I started this because my only other option was to go to college, and at the time, I had already been accepted into university for finance. My plan originally was to just go the traditional route, go to school for finance, and most likely become either an accountant or a financial advisor, and just work at a desk the rest of my life, right, in an office. Um, yeah, and at the time, that was like, like I had grown up. We had some family friends who were accountants or CPAs, whatever you want to call it, or financial advisors. So I had seen um, these people's lives. They had nice houses, some nice cars, nothing like social media worthy, especially nowadays, but nice like middle class, upper middle class living after they've been doing that for 20 years or whatever. So I was like, this looks pretty good, and I like numbers, I like money, so I figured that was the way. However, as I got closer to finishing high school, I had a couple friends that I had grown up with that were several years older than me, who had already gone through. They were like neighbors when I was growing up, and I ran into them, a couple of them at like a grad party. So shortly before high school ended, right, I ran into them. One guy in particular, and he was, I believe, on his second year of working at one of the big four accounting firms, and this guy had grown up his whole life, played sports, super like likable, very likable guy, very social. Like you cannot dislike this guy, right? Just one of those people, very good hearted and high energy. At least that was how he was that entire time that I knew him. So long story short, when I was talking to him, like this was like 4 months or like it was like 5 months before I finished high school, so it was like earlier on in the year. I was talking to him, and he's basically the life had been sucked out of him, for lack of better terms. Like hours were horrible. Not gonna say like working conditions, like it's like a normal office job, but just hours suck. The pay is not worth it. Corporate ladder thing, like office politics, all that jazz. It just really like takes the life out of you. You're just telling me how much it sucks, right? And from that moment on, like I really started to doubt like if I wanted to really pursue this career and pursue that path that he had already started, right? And he had already basically kind of paved the way for me to see like into the future of my own life, basically, because he had already gone to and graduated from the same school I was going to, which was Michigan State. I grew up in Michigan, so that was like the school that everyone was going to. Well, most people, either U of M or Michigan State, whatever. But yeah, he'd already gone there, graduated, basically taken like the exact steps that I was headed towards, right? And long story short, whatever, I'm not going to bore you with the details, but that sounded like hell to me. And I started to really dig into like any alternative paths. Like I had considered like going to trade school, ecom, day trading, that stuff. Like all the influencers were starting to push that, especially back in, several years ago. So after considering all the options that I had, right, I realistically wasn't going to become like a blue collar worker. I have a ton of respect for them, but it's just not for me. And ecom, like I didn't have any money to, spend money on like Facebook ads, or I don't know anything about e-commerce or drop shipping, whatever at the time was hot. So I figured that day trading was, feasible. All I need in my head, at least all I needed to do was make $100 a day, and I'm up, I make $2,000 a month, and I'll just scale that up, and it's all sunshine and rainbows, right? That's what was going through my head. So I picked that path. My thought process for that was, so again, like I explained in my previous video, in the introduction video, I had managed to convince my mom, who was 100% Japanese. I managed to convince her to let me take a gap year. If you're not familiar, or if you're not catching where the story is going, right? Asian parents are not very open-minded, I'll say, to the thought of their kids not going to college. So it was a battle, but my reasoning for this decision or this plan was because if I take a gap year and say worst case scenario, I fail and I crash and burn, school isn't going to go anywhere, right? There's every single year, there's always new kids going to school, going to university. I can just go to college a year later, and things will get pushed back a year. Not ideal, but it's also I'm not going to be homeless, right? My worst case scenario was I work this finance career, whatever that might lead to for the rest of my life, and that just gets pushed back a year. However, the best case scenario is things work out and I get a head start on, right, like owning a home, traveling, being able to retire my parents, being able to have it set up so that my wife doesn't work. Like, okay, at the time I wasn't like thinking like this, but looking back at it now and making this video, it's kind of interesting. I wasn't even thinking about this like on the big picture level. Honestly, at the time, I was only thinking about the worst case scenario, which was, like I lose all my friends from high school, which nobody gives a shit about. Like if you're still in high school, I'm just going to be honest with you, 99% of the time, the people that you talk to in high school, give it like a year or two, nobody keeps in contact with each other. Everyone goes their own ways. There are new friend groups, new social circles being developed. Don't lose sleep over that, I will say. You might not understand it right now, but in the future you will see. But anyways, at the time, right, I was worried because I was like, I'll lose all my friends. I'll just be by myself, and on top of that, I'll have no money and I'll be going to school. So that was like the holy trifecta of doom for me in my head. That was like the absolute worst case scenario. But anyways, yeah, like when I made this presentation, I made a presentation for my mom at the time, explaining my reasoning for like my plan of attack for like what I'm going to do to make sure that I have the best odds of succeeding. What I'm going to do if I fail. So, right, like go back and reapply, whatever, go to school, just everything gets delayed by a year, whatever. So think about the best case and the worst case scenario for yourself. Okay. Obviously your situation is very different than, well, maybe it's very different from mine when I first started when I was 17, almost 18. Maybe you're in your 30s, your 40s, your 20s, or maybe you're 15. I don't know. Like if you ran into this video, that's great. But think about your best case and your worst case scenario. For me, if everything crashed and burned and failed at trading, I would have just gone to school and done what everyone else is doing and been, like, most likely have been fine. However, best case, I'm not saying that I'm living the best case scenario, but I believe I've made a pretty nice life for myself and my family. And so the risk to reward, in my opinion, is highly favorable. But like I said, again, though, depends on your scenario. This is not like a one size fits all, right? I'm just giving you the context and the thought process that I had when I was first starting. So back when I did start, it took me all in roughly like 14 months. So about a year and 2 months to become profitable at trading, meaning that I had in the lifespan of trading period, in the entire time that I was trading, I was net positive instead of negative, right? That's what I define as profitable. If you've made more money than you lost, then by definition, in my opinion, you're profitable. Some people define it as like you can't call yourself profitable unless you are able to fully live off your income from trading alone, whatever. It's stupid in my opinion. Profitable means net revenue. Profit means net revenue is greater than total expenses, right? Or whatever those finance terms are. But if you're making more money than you're losing, you're profitable. It took me about a year and 2 months. And that was me literally dedicating every single waking second of my life. Like I did not have a girlfriend. Okay, I had a girlfriend through high school, broke up with her, had a decent amount of friends. I wasn't like super popular, but I had some friends from high school. Basically cut them all off. And it wasn't because like they did anything wrong or because I was like a piece of shit. Looking back, I shouldn't have done that, but it was just like the best thing that I could do to mitigate the FOMO that I was getting, if I'm being honest. Because like all my friends from high school, basically every single one in my social circle had gone to Michigan State, and they were, all roommates with each other, all going to parties with each other. So of course, the Snapchat stories, the Instagram stories, the posts, whatever, like every single day, every single weekend, especially, right? They're all having a great time, drinking, whatever, hanging out, meeting new people, new girlfriends, whatever, all this stuff, right? Looks awesome, but if you're not a part of it, it sucks. Super lonely, and honestly, like the worst FOMO of my life. And the entire time, well, like the first year or so, right? Like I'm not making any money. I was losing money because I was just figuring this stuff out. So I'm losing money, lost my friends, and I'm not getting a degree. Well, I'm not working towards a degree. So it sucks, right? It really takes a toll on you. And basically every single day, right, I'm like doubting if you know, some people say like they have no doubt in their mind. I don't know if that's realistic. That's not the case for me. For me personally, I definitely had a part of my brain that was like, what if this doesn't work? What if this doesn't work? You look like an idiot. We got the next family reunion or Christmas party or whatever it is. People are, like your family's gonna ask you, your friends of family are gonna ask you, how's Peter doing? What's he up to? Is he in school? And then you have to kind of show face and act like you're not going through it right now. So that's what was going through my head. But yeah, like I said, sorry. The point of this is I spent every single second that I could, unless I was like showering, eating, sleeping. I was studying the charts. I was watching YouTube videos. I was doing everything possible so that I could learn as much as I can, as quickly as I can, and start implementing it to start generating some money from my computer, right? So, like I said, right, if you are in school full time, or if you work full time, or if you work and you have kids and you're in school in time, like everyone's scenario is different, but the point of this whole thing is just be realistic with yourself. My path to seeing a decent level of success from this is not going to be your path, most likely not. But mainly because, like you and I are probably most likely different ages. I'll be 24 this year in a couple months. If your birthday is in late August, then that's different. But yeah, I'm guessing that most people are not my exact age and it's in this exact position. So it depends on that. However, there is a silver lining to this. So it took me about a year and 2 months to become profitable overall. However, that was from me basically starting at ground zero. I had no guidance. I had no guide rails on what to learn, what not to learn, what is a waste of time, and what is actually worth learning. That's another reason why I'm doing all this, right? I'm building a community, I'm building a online presence, whatever you want to call it, where everything that is actually useful, that actually helped me from ground zero to achieve a decent level of success, I'm putting it all in one place. If I had that, I don't know, I can't put a number on it, but I believe, honestly, I believe it would have cut down the total time in half at the very least. Because the worst part about my beginning on this whole journey was finding decent information, right? People will always tell you, look on YouTube. Everything can be learned on YouTube. That is true, and I say the same thing. However, there's still a lot of very bad information and people who don't have your best interest in mind, who are just pumping out videos just for the sake of generating ad revenue or to promote their course, whatever. They give you bad information so that you fail on purpose. They give it to you on purpose so that you fail. And then they're also saying oh, well, if you want the full secret recipe, then you have to pay for my whatever. So there's a lot of that going on as well. So it took me about a year and a couple months because I would look at one YouTuber for, risk management. I would look at one YouTuber for like trading strategy. I would look at another YouTuber for like technical setups or like whatever, psychology, for this example, right? If I could get everything from one person in one spot, then one, obviously that would have saved me a hell of a lot of time just looking and searching and watching videos over and over and over again. And two, that would have, it would just save me a lot of time. So, and a lot of money because, right, every second, every day that you are wasting watching bad information or learning bad information, that is time and money that can't be made back. Time that can't be gotten back because that time is gone. Money can always be made back, but in terms of the time, it's invaluable, right? So, that's kind of my goal with this is put everything in one spot so you can just go through everything in order and save yourself a lot of time, because if someone had done that for me in the beginning, I would have, who knows how much more money I would be making right now. But it would definitely, like without a doubt, it would have saved me a lot of time, a lot of headache, and a lot of money, and it would have made me a lot more by now, probably. But back to the original question that I said, that people ask me, how long will it take me to become profitable? My answer is always the same. It depends. Now, if you actually lock in and really truly commit to making steady improvements over time and learning something new every day, every week, every month, I believe that 2 to 4 months is possible. Obviously, that is still extremely quick, but I know people personally from speaking to them like inside the Discord or just meeting them from my social media in general. I know people who've made that a reality. Like the first time they ever looked at a chart was like this year, February or March, when I first started up on social media. And now they're getting payouts. Now they're, making more money than their regular job. So I know that it's possible, but like I said, the exception, that is an exception as opposed to the rule. Majority of people will still fail. That doesn't change. But if you actually take this seriously, it's entirely possible, in my opinion. Most people fail because they are either way too impatient, because of bad expectations. They think that, if I start today, I start making money tomorrow, I'm rich by next Monday. Like that is genuinely it seems like that's what most people think, which is unfortunate. But, if you are more long-term oriented, and you have a little bit of patience, then this can be extremely rewarding and change a lot of things for you. So keep that in mind. Now, I think that the more important aspect of this is understanding that it's a process, right? Think of it like working out or getting in shape for the summer. Say you want to lose 50 pounds, and basically it's the exact same scenario. No one wants to do the hard work for a long period of time because it sucks to, eat less food. It sucks to work out. It sucks to wake up early. It sucks to do X, Y, Z that will help you over a long period of time. Same exact thing for trading / investing. The stuff that, or like literally anything that is worth doing is not going to be easy. Super cliche, but it's cliche for a reason. It's because it's the case for every single one of these scenarios. So, there's no shortcut to this. You can't just get rich off of one trade. As many like Reddit screenshots or Twitter threads or like TikTok videos that you see of people making a bunch of money off of one trade. There's a good chance that it's fake, especially if they're selling something or promoting their course or whatever. And two, the odds of you ever making, however much money, like whatever, I don't even know what people are posting these days. Like I think it's like really just like horrible to look at for the most part. So I try to avoid it, but whatever, I've seen like some insane things like $100,000 in a day, $200,000 in a day in profit. And it's like, I can't blame you if you're like a beginner and you think that this is normal and you just need to, you just need to be right one time, as if you're like, that's just like a gambling mentality, right? It's not good, and you will almost certainly end up losing everything. So don't do that. But point being, the truth is that the only way to make this work is by doing the hard work day in and day out. honestly, it's not even that hard. Like it's pretty straightforward. Like if you learn proper information and if you actually apply it and you try, like you just stay disciplined and you just show up every day to learn and apply that information, it's really not that difficult in my opinion. The hardest part is just waiting for things to play out like they should. If you properly, manage your risk, if you properly wait for your trades to come to you instead of forcing things or rushing things, if you properly, control your emotions or your psychology, if you do and then if you properly journal your trades and you keep detailed records of, how your performance is doing over time, over weeks, months, years, whatever, you will succeed, in my opinion. But just waiting for all that to play out and start to form a new reality for you. Okay, that sounds pretty cringy. I apologize, but like once those things start clicking right, your life will change, as it did for myself, as it did for people that I talk to every single day. It was never like one day where just like everything changed and now I'm just like printing a bunch of money. It was a gradual improvement. It was gradual improvement over time. So the hardest part is just waiting for that, really, while you are actively putting in the time that it takes to produce those results. And I'm saying that because I'm not the smartest guy in the world by any means. I did fine in school, but I'm not like a genius, AI computer guy or anything. I didn't invent anything crazy. And I'm definitely no smarter than any of you watching this right now. But how I managed to achieve some small amount of success in this space is by focusing on those small incremental wins and building those wins up over months and years. And just like with anything else, right, there's always going to be hard days where you feel like you're stuck. Always going to be hard weeks, even hard months, maybe even hard, years. Okay, years is a bit of a stretch, but there's always going to be hard days and weeks. I will stand by that. I've had plenty of those. I've had plenty of losing days. I've had plenty of losing weeks. Knock on wood, I've not had a losing week or a losing month in a while, but especially in the beginning, like I said, I'm 6 years in, basically. If you are watching this, I'm guessing that you are pretty brand freaking new. So just understand that failure or losing money is a part of the process. I still lose money. The best traders that I know, they lose money as well. Like everyone is wrong eventually. But as long as you're right more than you're wrong, then you will be fine. And as long as you manage your stuff properly, which we'll talk about later in the series, you'll be perfectly fine. You do not need to be right 100% of the time to make any money with this. Just focus on the small wins and be consistent and show up, and you will make it. I can't promise, but I am very confident that as long as you stick to that, then you will do just fine. But I touched on it previously, most people are very short-sighted. It's like the brain rot economy now. People just want success today. People want to get shredded today. People want to find a hot girlfriend or boyfriend today, right? But they don't want to do the steps necessary for that, right? We're used to freaking Amazon Prime. We're used to one-day delivery. We're used to, Uber Eats. We're used to all this, right? You need to be thinking long-term or else this will never work. You might have a couple good days, couple weeks, even a couple months or years, but if you're not planning on playing the long game, you're missing out on a lot. In terms of setting expectations, I really urge you to start thinking long-term. Start thinking in months and years, not days and weeks. Days and weeks will get you hurt financially, not physically. It'll get you hurt real bad. And I'm speaking from experience. I got burned in the beginning a lot from penny stocks and options because I believed the hype that I was seeing on Reddit and Twitter of people, turning $300 into 300K in 30 days. Those stupid Twitter threads that are all fake. I'm not ashamed to say that I believe those, especially in the beginning, because I was why would they lie, right? But a few years later, today. I am a bit less naive, so hopefully you not take my word for it, but take this into consideration. So just be long-term, be long-term oriented. Don't think in weeks, don't think in days and weeks, think in months and years. And I truly believe that you have a very good shot at this. If someone had told me that in the beginning, you probably don't believe me right now. If you don't, that's okay. 99% chance that you will find out the hard way. If you do believe me, then that makes me happy. Just because, right, there's a reason why 99% of people fail. Whatever the stat is, 97, 99, whatever. There's a reason why extremely small percentage of people ever make any money with this. And it just all goes back to patience and instant gratification mindset that pretty much everyone has. So start thinking like the 1% or the 3% that actually make it. Okay, and this is how. So in the beginning, I also was thinking like, this has to be super easy. Like I just have to buy low and sell high. All I need is $200 a day and I can travel and do all this stuff. And like I said, right, it came from social media, people making their like promoting their thing, whatever it is, they're promoting themselves to, get you out of the rat race by, all you need is $200 a day. All you need is this one indicator. All you need is this one whatever, and you can have freedom for the rest of your life. It's easy to believe that we don't have anything else to lean on. But yeah, obviously it's not easy like that, or else everyone would be rich and retired. Now, also another thing to note is that you shouldn't worry about the money, which might sound counterintuitive, but you need to hear me out. If the money that you make, or at least you hope to make from trading, is your only source of income, that puts an enormous amount of pressure on you. Speaking from someone who lived only off of trading income, and then I'm not going to say lived off of investment income because I don't touch my long-term stuff, but speaking from someone who's lived solely off of trading, like day trading income alone for several years now, just believe me when I say this, if that is the only thing that is keeping food on the table, roof over your head, clothes on your back, especially if you have a family and kids, which I have a son now, as well as a wife, the amount of pressure that you feel is, especially like when you're not used to it, it's insane. Insane isn't even like a strong enough word to describe it, but it's really like unimaginable if you're not in that position or you've never been in that position, because every single day in your mind, right, you're thinking either I get closer to giving my family or myself a better life, or I get further from it if I lose money, right? Now, thinking like that every single day before you take a trade, you've already lost, in my opinion. That's how a lot of people get rinsed as well, or like people who, they have like a couple of good weeks and they're like, okay, I quit my job. I'm going to go full in. I'm going to go all in on trading now. I have enough money. Well, most people don't save up enough money because they think that success will continue. And, I did it for a couple of weeks. I made money for 2 weeks in a row now. And now I know how to make money every week. And that's kind of the mindset that traps them. And sure enough, they get burned and end up on the street. Now, I'll give you an example of this type of pressure. When I first met the girl who ended up becoming my wife, she knew a rough estimate of how much money I was making from trading, right? And even that alone put some pressure on me. At the time, right, I had a cool car. I had an apartment with some friends in their like college town. I'd finally moved out from my mom's house because I could afford to, and I got a apartment from a couple friends that I had reconnected with from high school, whatever. But I had this cool apartment, had a very cool car, and I met this amazing girl right, that I knew she was the one, okay? Now, obviously, me being a young Peter at the time, I pulled up in the AMG coupe in the 2-door with the peanut butter interior. I had to show her that I'm serious, right? So I like showed her some like payouts, my trading profits, all that, right? Greased the wheels a bit. So But yeah, anyways, so at the time, it was around like, I'd say like 15 to 20K a month was pretty average. That was like the baseline. At least like I was hitting that for like, I was at that level for like 3 or 4 months consistently. So I was like, yeah, check it out. Like this is, okay. So funny story, right? When we first met, she was a sophomore in college and we were the same age. Like we had graduated high school together or like the same year, but we had met while she was still in college. Um, anyways, I was insecure about the fact that I wasn't a college student because I figured that, these college girls, if they find out that you're not in school or like you don't go to school and you're not in a frat or whatever, that's like a red flag, or like they just consider you like unemployed, like loser. Like if you have a nice car but you say you're not in school, they just write you off as like rich daddy's money kid, whatever. So anyways, I lied to her. Oh yeah, actually, I on our first date, for like the first like 3 weeks, honestly, of us dating, I told her that I was a student, and I didn't even mention the fact that I was trading at all. I told her later on, like after like I finally told her, I'm actually not in school, but I was just scared that you wouldn't be interested because I'm not in school, whatever. Anyways, she didn't care, and maybe it helped that I was actually making money. But anyways, right, back to the point. So back to the story. So I had told her at this time, I was showing her like the trading profits. It was like 15 to 20K a month. And that was basically like the standard, right? Now going forward, I would, if I had like a green day, I'll, show her and we'd like get nice dinner or something. Like I said, right, I was young. I'm not saying this is like the smartest thing to do, but this is a true story. So learn from your boy. So fast forward a little bit, a couple months later, I had made, there's a month that I made like 8K or 9K. Obviously still a great amount of money, especially at that age, but it was still lower than that baseline that I had told her of 15,000 a month. Even that alone, like she didn't even make like she didn't make a face, or she didn't say anything that was like, oh, that's it, or like, dang, like I don't know. She didn't say anything that like made me feel some type of way, but it was just like not guilt, but it was something. It was like a pit in my stomach that like I felt like I let her down, and we had just met, right? This was like within like the first like month or two of us meeting. Oh yeah, first couple months of us meeting. Now fast forward. Okay, yeah. So that alone, like since then, I've been kind of like conditioning myself to be more numb to that feeling as time goes on. But anyways, right now, fast forward. Today we are married. We have a child. We want to have more kids, and my wife does not have to work. I told her that I don't want her to work so that she can just take care of our family and the house and our animals. Now we have a bunch of animals, if you weren't aware. But anyways, right, if your like starting point is you already have kids, you already have a family to take care of, you already have, your job is to put food on the table for your family, and you want to just jump in headfirst right away and start trading as do trading as your only source of income. Holy cow. Jesus, I'm sorry. So this is like bringing a lot of memories back. Okay. If you're in a position right now where you are like the sole, or like the main income earner, I'm assuming, like 95% of my audience is guys, so I'm assuming that you're a guy. If you're a female, then thank you for watching the video. I appreciate it. But whatever, guys or girls, I'm assuming you're watching this because you want to make more money for your family, right? And you want your family and your kids and yourself to have a better life. That's fantastic. But if you are in a position right now where, like, if you stopped making money, then your kids could not eat, your wife could not eat, you will feel like a failure, and you will need to figure something else out. Just be careful, because the amount of pressure that you feel as soon as, right, like okay, I've never had a corporate job. I never had a 9 to 5. The first and last job I ever had was as a dishwasher in high school. What was that, like 7 years ago? Yeah, like 7 years ago now. So I can't speak from like corporate world experience, but as soon as that like consistent monthly check stops hitting and you are now forced to either perform or starve, basically, your mentality and your entire psyche, your psychology, whatever that word is, everything changes, right? Yeah, like even for myself, especially in like the first, I would say like 2 years, like 3 years of me doing this. Yeah, like there were a couple of rough months. Like, okay, I was never to a point where like I was like actually like close to being homeless. I'm not saying that, but like there were months that, I made, a quarter of what I did the previous month. Now, it sucks, obviously, right? Like it's like a business. It's never going to be perfectly consistent month over month, year over year, right? So yeah, I just want you to be realistic and expect that, there will be peaks and valleys. There will be, months where you make more money than you ever thought was possible. But there will also be months where you doubt everything about your own ability, and you doubt everything that you've ever learned. You think that, maybe this isn't the right path for me. Maybe I'm not meant for this, like whatever the case is. Right. And like, especially to this day, like, maybe it's not good to think about it, but this is reality, right? Like if I say, for example, if I got hit by a bus tomorrow, God forbid, like my wife doesn't know how to trade. Obviously she has a college degree. She's smart. She's a great person. But obviously the lifestyle would not be, it would be tough to maintain the lifestyle is my point. Obviously, like I've set aside enough money now that we'll be fine no matter what happens, at least for years, not decades, but a long time. But right before I was at this point, the amount of times that I would think that, or like, I had a lot of nightmares too, when it came to this stuff. Like what if I just, whatever, like what if I just like lost it one day? Like I've had nightmares where like I am like trading and I'm just like ass like for days and weeks at a time. Yeah, and it sucks. So back to the point, right? The whole point of this video is to be realistic with your expectations. Don't think that you're going to come in and within 2 months you're going to be able to quit your 9 to 5. You're going to be making more money than you've ever made, all from your laptop, on the beach, and whatever. You're going to be making all this money and things are going to be great forever. Even if you've already had good weeks or good days or good weeks or good months even, nothing is promised in the future. Things could completely change and you might have to learn an entirely new strategy, right? So let's keep that in mind and, just try to be realistic with your expectations before you get into this. This is not a get rich quick scheme by any means. Social media, 99% of it is a lie. Pretty much every person that you see who looks like they made all their money from trading, I would bet everything that I have that at least 95% of them are, that's not the case. Okay. Especially if their entire social media presence is luxury, travel, houses, cars, whatever, and they sell something, I would bet everything that I have that they are not who they say they are. So be very careful who you listen to. However, right? If this works and you are actually serious about making this work, I heard this saying, trading is the hardest way to make easy money. Now, if you break that down, it is extremely hard, right? I'm never going to say this is easy by any means. There are days where things are easier, but that does not mean that the entire career or like doing this as a full-time job is easy whatsoever. However, once you figure out your system, once you figure out your risk management, once you figure out your psychology and your emotions, the amount of money that you can make given like in proportion to the amount of work, pressing a couple buttons is unbeatable in my opinion. So yeah, just focus and don't think that your whole life will change next month just because you start this today. Nothing that I do or say will make you rich by next month, unfortunately. But, it might get you there within the next year or 16 months or 18 months, whatever. If you actually take this seriously and you put in the work to make consistent and incremental improvements over time. So, hope you take that to heart. I apologize. This video is a bit longer than I expected, but it is what it is. So, if you watch the whole thing, I appreciate it. The next video we'll actually get into some chart stuff. So, yeah, we'll see you on the next one. Appreciate it.